LGBT is lesbian, gay, bi, trans.
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, but it's more inclusive than that. If you tried to encompass everything, you would be sitting there talking for at least 10 minutes.
I usually use the term LGBTQIA asterisk to include intersex and asexual persons.
I think about LGBTQ as an acronym relating to a group of people that are allegedly very close and understanding, but are in fact fractured.
Growing up in the Kentucky mountains was fantastic. I am so thankful that I'm from here, especially being in an environment where there's such a rich storytelling culture, musical culture, the food. My childhood was pretty normal. I had a really good childhood, had a lot of fun. I was really goofy, pretty much the same way that I am now. I was a huge tomboy, and I got made fun of a lot for that in school. I mean, it was about as rough as everyone can relate to, I guess. Kids are relentless, especially if you're different.
Growing up in the mountains is, honestly, as a kid, it's kind of boring. When I was a kid, I thought that you're supposed to explore and figure out who you were. I was always more, yeah, dolls and stuff are fun, but like, there's a mud puddle and a bunch of toy trucks and action figures. Let's go do that.
Growing up, I had a pretty good childhood. Had a hard time making friends and feeling connected to people. Little Al listened to a lot of music and talked to trees and built fairy houses. That was like the time where like gender didn't matter, you know? It's like you're so young and kids just talk to everyone and like, I don't know, that was really cool for me.
I break up my childhood into so many different boxes, separate that and to organize that and to think about it, not linearly, but trauma to trauma and joy to joy and how it has shaped me today. I was so deeply involved with my cousin Rachel, who has now since passed away, and what we would do as kids and run around and have fun and play. And when I do think about that aspect of my childhood, I think about it being such a free time and a time of exploration.
When I was 6 or 7, I was a very adventurous child. I liked to try everything. I would do things, or I'd try things if someone offered. When I was 7, I lived in the apartments and I had a friend over. So one day she was like, hey, do you want to learn how to kiss? And I was like, well, yeah, sure. I mean, why not? It's just a kiss, it won't hurt. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. So we went in the closet and we kissed, and little did I know that that was a thing.
This moment I had when I was, it was like when I was in middle school or early high school or something. I was driving around with my dad and my older brother, who was in the front seat, and I was sitting in the back. And I'm like listening, Katy Perry's on there, and she's like, I kissed a girl or whatever. And she liked it, apparently. I had not kissed a girl yet, and I was in thorough denial of being like, that I was not gay. And so, inspired by this denial, I just screamed out of nowhere in the car, I'm not gay! And I think that's probably when they knew that indeed I was gay.
I was probably 6 years old. There was a tire garage in the town over, and but it was like this guy changing our tire, and I was like, well, he's like cute. It's so bizarre. I don't know why it was even that early. It just happened, I guess.
Man, I was maybe in 8th grade, and then I can't even remember who I was talking to about it, but they were explaining how, like, you know, they didn't really want to flirt with the boys, or they didn't really fit in with the in crowd at school because they were different. They preferred a different style, or they had different personalities or different viewpoints. And I was just like, man, me too. I don't really get along with a whole bunch of people at school. I get along with more guys. Don't really want to flirt with the boys either.
In 6th grade, I talked to my best friend. We were talking and I said, hey, I think that I don't feel right, like my body doesn't suit me. She was like, well, there's a word for that, and I think it's, something to do with not feeling like you're in the right body. I was like, okay, well, we need to figure this out. And I figured out that I was trans. I told my boyfriend at the time, who decided that it was wrong. So he would text my mom, tell her everything, tell her I'm trans, tell her that I'm not straight. So she found out like that, and then everyone in the school found out because he told them in this high school and in the middle school. Everyone reacted pretty horribly.
I wasn't encouraged to do masculine things. Like, I always wanted to ride dirt bikes, go fishing, and play ball, but I was more encouraged to do things like shop or dance and stuff, which I danced for a long time, 8 years up until 7th grade, and I was really passionate about it, but I had to stop. You have to wear a leotard and tights, and I hated my body so much that as soon as I started developing, I fell into a really deep depression that led to self-harm, and I don't know, I feel like I'm out of that hole now, but
I've had teachers, students, principals. I mean, I've had a lot of people at Letcher County Central. They'll sit there and honestly make really rude remarks and threats towards me because I'm trans or because I'm gay. I stayed in trouble because even if I didn't do anything, I did everything just because of who I was. And there were other kids who were LGBT in the community, but there were no people there who would think that I belonged with them. They thought, yes, they were a part of that community, but I was so far below them that I wasn't even worth being called a human.
I once had a potato thrown at me in lunch. I had many things thrown at me at lunch, like ketchup and fruit, which is almost clever. They didn't mean it that way, but it would have been really clever. It was whatever they could throw, coinage, pennies, lots of that. People walk past in the hallway and get in my ear and it's I fucking hate queers, or kill yourself, faggot, or all that. It was just very much that I'd be shoved a lot, pushed, generally maligned as a person, and I became high school gay famous, basically, where I was the gay kid. All the men who were mean to me, their girlfriends were friends with me. So there was this me in the middle of a column agreement where it was okay, in the hallways I get treated like shit. I've been treated like shit my entire school career, but in certain spaces, I'm friends with very, very popular women.
there are people that don't understand, and when I try to explain to them that I exist in between, people have called me retarded and just mean things because they don't understand. And I just I don't know, I think that that's just flat out rude and wrong, just because you don't understand how someone feels that it's bad or wrong or something, you know? That's dumb. I've always been screw you to that kind of thing.
I'm just gonna get some frozen yogurt. I mean, that's a thing. Everybody enjoys that. This is totally normal. And this one old man was with what I'm assuming is his grandson. His grandson was really young, probably 4 or 5 years old. And he just looks at me in front of everybody and says, "She's a doc." And I just kind of look at him like, what the hell, man? You know, I'm here doing the exact same thing that you're doing, and you're just like, you feel the need to point out something so needless and hateful. You're making yourself look like an ass. But I just left. I mean, I didn't know how to handle it. There have been other instances, but they don't bother me nearly as much as they used to, because realistically, I'm not gonna change for some asshole who thinks that, you know, they're righteous enough to tell me how to live my life.
Discrimination of the school is really harsh. The teachers ignored you if you were a part of the LGBT. So many teachers did kindly just ignore you, and they let the students do whatever they wanted. There's a straight couple over there in the corner pretty much having sex, but what about that couple in the middle of the hallway? They kiss each other's cheek and they're the same gender and they walk away. I was sitting beside her on the bus. I looked over, kissed her on the cheek, and turned back around and we started talking. The bus driver stopped in the middle of the road and said, "I don't like gays," or "I hate gays." And he stood up and walked to the back. He walks right in front of us, stops, and he tells us both to get up. And I was like, no, I'm not getting up from my spot. You have no reason to be here, like to be back here yelling at us. We didn't do anything wrong. And so he proceeded to say that if we sit near each other, I'll be kicked off the bus. He removed me from all my friends. I wasn't allowed to have anyone sit with me for 2 years in school, like on the school bus, because I was gay and I had kissed my girlfriend barely on the cheek and caused a riot.
The reality of the situation was, if my family ever found out, it would not be good. One particular relationship that I had, I won't say his name, but you know, I really liked him as a person. We really got along, but I didn't want to be intimate with him for obvious reasons. And so the relationship ended, and I remember I was so upset, because in that moment I had to face everything. I had to sit down and be like, you are gay. We pick ourselves up from here and we go on from here. We will make it, and it will be okay, because we will make it okay. And I'm glad that I had that defining moment, because if I would have kept on the trail that I was on, I would never have been able to see myself where I am now.
I transferred after my sophomore year from a public school in my area to an art school called the Arts and College Preparatory Academy. And that changed my life, because I just learned about I met all these people that identified as different things. I was able to be myself fully and be seen for myself, and even talk to teachers about my pronouns, and they were accepting and did their best to respect them. The whole anxiety and depression thing is very real, and I went to therapy for a very long time. I started in high school, had to address a lot of self-harm issues, but I feel everything I went through helped me evolve into the person that I am. Yeah, it's still hard, and mental disorders are no fun, but it's not gonna stop me.
These kids started making fun of me. They called me a faggot, and I tried so hard not to cry. I was like, okay, it's just a word, it doesn't mean much, right? They kept going until I started to get mad. So I stood up and said, if you don't stop, I'm gonna bash your fucking head in, every one of you. And with that, I sat down and started crying, and everyone was laughing at me. So when I went to 5th period, the principal and the police came over, and I'm crying at my desk. They came in and they said, we need you to come with us. Why did you say that? I told them, and they were just like, well, that's not what we care about. What we care about is, why did you terroristic threaten the school? I said I didn't. So the only option I had was to get in the back of the police car, go to the police station, where they decided I needed to go to a psych ward for a week and 1 day. Being there was really hard. I was very alone at this time. I wasn't allowed to call my family. I wasn't allowed to see my family. We weren't allowed to talk or touch each other when they did visit. So after that, they were like, yeah, I'll call your mom. You're getting out. Tell her to come get you at like 11:30. I said, okay. I go, call, everything's fine. Until later that evening, I said, well, Mom said she'll come get me, everything's fine. They said, no, that's not right. You're going to jail right after this. You don't have a choice.
When I was 13, I was accepted into the Appalachian Media Institute for an audio lab that I don't remember much about now, but at the time I remember feeling so empowered by it. It was this new horizon of like a job, but it was just like amazing. And I would come in here and be exposed to like different things, which was so new to me. And as time went on, I grew a deeper and more closer relationship to Appalshot and AMI, the Appalachian Media Institute, where I began to flourish personally with my identity and how I was interacting with art and culture and media production. And as it so happens, I was building up a professional sort of resume within that.
The first date that I had with my girlfriend, it was really, really special because, one, she picked me up at my house. Two, she immediately met my dad, and so it was like, you know, I've never had anything like that before, and so it was like, it was really special to get to experience that because, I mean, finally I'm in a position where my girlfriend gets to meet my parents. She gets to come over to my house and pick me up. We can go on dates. It's like, it's insane. It's insane to me to comprehend it, but it's so awesome. It's so wonderful to experience that.
All years of high school, all 4 years I got sent off at least once for self-harm, for suicide. The last one for being terroristic threatening to the 3rd degree, which I hadn't done. October, I went to Massachusetts with the Hands Over the Hills project. When the Leverett people came here, it was after the school incident. So after all of that happened at school and I've been arrested, they had told me that there might be a possible way I could move to Massachusetts and that I could go to school there and finish school. Things started to go in order. I waited for a month or so before I got to go to court and ask about it. And I was just hoping that there would be a way to get out of here finally. So once I finally heard them say yes, my heart just, I've never felt so great in my life, knowing that I can get out of here, knowing that I can finally start to transition, start to make myself better and do what's better for me.
So when I left high school, I began getting out my old drag makeup kit and drawing on paper with it. And that laid the foundation of me becoming a painter, and I was doing all these experimental painting things. And now, 3 years later, I'm an actual established artist. And that's changed since high school. I've now become more creative and emboldened to be more creative and more secure in my creativity than I was then, certainly. And overall, my experiences after high school, I suppose, have culminated in me gaining the respect I always knew I wanted, I think. And that's the takeaway of my life post, high school.
I came out as like trans or queer a couple years ago and have had a lot of conversations with my mom and my dad about like how I feel about my body and how I feel I identify, and explaining that I don't really feel like male or female, or that there are things that I would change about my body, like surgically, to make me feel more comfortable. College is when I started getting back into dance, and I really haven't stopped dancing since my sophomore year. And that's been really beautiful because I didn't realize something was missing when I quit dance when I was a kid, but now I realize like I just can't live without it. It's just a way of being.
My advice to younger people who are going through the struggles of accepting themselves or even finding out who they are, stick with it. You'll be okay. You have people out in the world that love you. People who don't even know you will support you. You will have areas where you can go, like safe spaces. More and more safe spaces are popping up all over the place. And eventually, I'm hoping that everything will be different. And this isn't something that we're going to have to fight for forever.
You can wake up feeling sad, roll around for an hour in your bed, but by the middle of the day I hope you realize that special spark you have on the inside. It's your beauty.